Hello everyone, it is Vic here and welcome to Aéroport Le Bourget in Paris, in France. This behind me is the Aviation and Space Museum of Paris, and I'm gonna take you on a little tour around this gem of an aviation paradise. Let's get going. Just past the security check to get inside of the main building, we have a few aircraft models and even some military vehicle looks like. On that side, similar situation, got some aircraft models and a ticket office. And over there, we can already see there's some planes, looks like an A380. We're gonna get to that in a second. Just got my boarding pass and a few other papers, feels like I'm going for a flight. And now to one of the main highlights of the museum, we have two Concordes in the hangar. One French and one just in the general livery, with a few countries labeled that all took part in its creation and manufacturing. Staircase into the back of the Concorde. Now we're slowly entering the flight deck area of the Concorde. You can see all the flight gadgets and everything. The crew was quite a large team on this aircraft. And I have to say the aisle is quite narrow, but you can see how it happened here with all the command posts. And over there is the cockpit itself, unfortunately closed off, but we can see how it was inside. Mostly steam gauges, at least 4 members of the crew sitting right there in the cockpit.
Je vous souhaite la bienvenue à bord de ce Concorde. Notre destination New York Kennedy. Le temps de vol 3h25 minutes. Welcome on board the Concorde.
I also have to mention how tiny these windows are, like in comparison with my hand. The actual outer window is actually tiny. Another look at the Air France Concorde from the back. We have one set of engines here, and as you can see on the right hand side we have the reverse thrust open, the magnificent tail with the Air France livery, of course the safety landing gear to prevent tail strike upon touchdown, and a few other models spread it around the hangar. So now we got to another highlight, the Boeing 747 of Air France that we can access actually. This looks like a rather old 747, definitely a generation before the Dash 400, which has become so popular, knowing Air France was one of the earlier operators of the type. So this is the nose of the first deck, mostly filled with business or first class seating. Quite luxury, huh? And over there's the rest of the cabin. Climbing to the second deck along a very creepy staircase. And that is the long-awaited cockpit. This is what much of the cabin looked like on the first deck. We have the more premium seating and the regular economy seating. Most likely was arranged in a 3-4-3 configuration that is quite common for Boeing 747s. And below us, just to admire, we have the baggage area. That was huge enough in the 747 that people could have stood up in their full height Here's the area of the disassembled 747. You can clearly see how the lavatory looked like, how the seating looked like, what the fuselage was made of. And if you descend into the level of baggage, you can see the area for landing gear, which is obviously closed because the landing gear is extended. And when the landing gear is extended, this cap usually flips up so that it doesn't get in the way.
Mesdames, Messieurs, quelques instants d'attention s'il vous plaît. Nous allons traverser une zone de forte turbulence. Je vous demande de regagner vos sièges et d'attacher...
Some artificial pilot announcements. On this side we have a cargo area, and we can see that we could fit whole cars in here, and that's how our little pets could be transported. It's worth mentioning that on the cargo version, the entire nose actually could open up, and in there you could load on all the types of vehicles you could ever imagine. And that's why these 747 cargo aircraft are still used to this day. In the back we can check out the galley, along with the rest of the cabin with filled seating configuration, like I've said before, 343. Along with the galley, this area basically stayed the same to this day, except a slightly more modernized interior with IFE screens, etc. But as the 747 is still flying, this area of the aircraft is basically intact. And this is the exit on the rear door. We have the wing. Obviously, since this is an older 747, we don't have any winglets on here, which is totally normal for this aircraft. We have a view of some other aircraft that are available for us in the museum, and that's the beautiful tail. Here's the closer look at the largest commercial aircraft on Earth, the Airbus A380 in its official Airbus livery, the same original livery used during its testing flights. Unfortunately, it's closed off to the visitors, so we cannot enter inside of the aircraft, but we can get very close to the fuselage and just admire the scale of this machine. Of course, 2 engines under each wing. As always, the look underneath the wing. Featuring the Airbus winglets, not yet sharklets, and admiring the sets of landing gear to hold this heavy aircraft. Here's a look at the Canadair, the aircraft that helped to put down so many wildfires, not even back in history, but even in the modern history. Wildfires in California and southern France used this aircraft to put them down. Now the hangar of the Second World War. Here we have a Douglas AD4 aircraft. Or there we have a BMW aircraft of the German Air Force. On this side we have the infamous Thunderbolt. And of course, the gem of the hangar, we have the Douglas, also known as the Dakota, that was used by the Allied forces. Of course, not missing out on one of the main gems of the American aviation industry, the P-51 Mustang. Elevated plane above, some of the engine prototypes on the bottom, yet another generation of Dassault Mirage. Just have to admire how huge these fighter jets were. Now this part of the hangar is made for the First World War aircraft. Basically military aircraft. We have some one-seater planes with guns on them, which is quite a multitasking activity, I would say. On this side we have more like 1917, 1918 type aircraft. Mostly German, as you can easily identify by the symbolism, and the French counterpart. Here's a quick look from the upper deck, just to admire all this historical beauty. A closer look at some airships. We have an engine, and as you can see here closely, that's the engine that is right here. So I mean, it's obvious, you understand the scale of this machine, right? Another comparison between an image and an airship basket. You can see how many people could fit in there. And I have to mention, back in the days, this was quite an impressive achievement. Welcome to a completely different part of this museum, the part of space, filled with spaceships, rocket ships, missiles, satellites, and whatnot. And here are the French contenders for the space race, the first French rockets. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to recommend a very nice aviation store here as well. I just got myself a little gift. And with that being said, the tour of the museum is over. I hope you enjoyed me taking you along this gem of an aviation paradise here in the heart of Paris. Thank you for watching, and peace out and goodbye.